afternoon to the town of Kensington. I want to welcome you to the 2020 Town of Kensington Candidates Forum. My name is Sean McMullen. I'm one of your co-moderators today. I'm a 19-year resident of the town. My co-moderator is Rob Sachs. For the portion that we do the mayoral election candidates, I will be asking the candidates questions while Rob will be the timekeeper. Later, when we switch to the council election candidates, we will switch roles. Rob will be asking questions as the inquisitor, and I will be keeping time. Before we start, I want to remind everyone that this weekend, Monday is Memorial Day, and we're honoring those who have given their lives in service of our country. Further, our nation is recognizing this weekend the victims of the coronavirus pandemic by keeping our flags lowered at half-staff for the entire weekend. So I'd ask that everyone please take a moment at some point this weekend and stop and keep our past military fallen and the COVID victims and their families, as well as our frontline workers, in your thoughts. By agreement of the candidates, here is our format today. Each candidate will provide an introduction not to exceed 1.5 minutes. Next will be the question and answer portion. Prior to today's forum, residents were invited to submit questions, and to the greatest extent possible, we will be using those questions to ask the candidates. We will not read the questions verbatim, and in fact, in some instances, we've modified questions based on the format of today's forum, which is that questions are not typically asked directed at one candidate or where the issue relates only to one candidate. For example, if a question was aimed at only one candidate, I've taken a step back to make the question more general. The moderators also have the discretion to follow up, refocus, or rephrase a question depending on the candidate's answers. Candidates will have 1 minute to state their responses to questions. The co-moderator will show signs, which will show when the responding candidate has 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when time is up. Near the end of the Q&A, we will take a short break to sift through any questions that are submitted during the course of the forum this afternoon. And time permitting, we will ask as many of those as we can as well. The candidates will then have, at the very end, 1.5 minutes to make closing remarks. We forgot to do this beforehand, so I will tell you, Tracy and Pete, that I have underneath my table either 1 or 2 fingers. Tracy, if you'll tell me if I have 1 or 2 fingers, I'll give you the choice of going first or second.
2 fingers.
I had 2 fingers. So Tracy, you have the choice of first or second?
I'd like to go second in the introduction and first in the closing.
Okay, that's how we'll do it.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, the other way around. I'll start with the introduction and then last in the closing. I'm sorry.
Okay. So there you see it, folks. It was truly by lot and by agreement of the candidates. So first up is candidate and current mayor, Tracey Furman, who will now have 1.5 minutes to provide an opening statement.
Thank you, Sean. For those who may not know me that well, my name is Tracey Furman, and I've been a resident of the town of Kensington since 1980. I first ran for the council in 2012, and I served 2 terms. When Pete decided to step down to run for higher office, he recruited me to run for mayor, and I was elected in 2016 and again in 2018. My husband David is retired and lives in Pasadena, Maryland. If you want to have a long and happy marriage, sometimes living apart is best. David served the town as a director of public works and served 1 term on the town council. My earlier career was in PR and marketing. I was a media buyer for a firm that specialized in law firm branding. I now work at St. Paul's United Methodist Church across from Town Hall as the facilities manager. I have 3 adult children that I'm extremely proud of. Our 2 older children are active duty military. My son Nathan is a Chief Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force, serving in RAF Lakenheath in England with his wife Jenny and daughter Pepper. They are headed to Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, Japan in July. My daughter Caitlin, who many may remember her days at Itsy Bitsy Bakery and Jenny Cakes and Cafe 1894, serves in the United States Coast Guard in Florida with her husband, Rolly, who is also in the Coast Guard. My youngest daughter, Samantha, I'm sorry, Rob, I couldn't tell your thing.
We're at time is up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next candidate is our former mayor, Peter Fosselman.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to our friends at the Municipal Cable Station and our moderators, Rob Sachs and Sean McMullen. I actually washed Sean's car before the format today, so they'll hopefully get some favoring advantages here. Thank you also to those taking the time this afternoon to join us. I'm running for mayor again because we need to do better with town government. We can do better with land development. We can do better with fiscal restraint, better with politeness, better with school boundary advocacy, and better with enforcing our code. I was first elected in 2007 with a platform to revitalize Kensington and change our image of simply being a weekend antique destination. Kensington was a dry town, and I led efforts to amend state liquor laws allowing restaurants to serve alcohol. I championed the amending of the state zoning laws, giving Kensington the ability to participate in land use decisions, a much desired tool to guarantee smart growth for Kensington. I also led the town in the updating of the 1978 Kensington Sector Plan. The new plan allows mixed uses, lowering building heights, safeguarding our neighborhoods, and bringing the town into the 21st century. If elected, I would do as I did in my prior administration and focus on fiscal restraint, protecting our small town charm, advocating for our Walter Johnson school cluster, thoughtful planning for land development, and enforcing our town code. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you both. So as we enter into the question and answer phase, I will note that I did serve on the council both with Pete and with Tracey, and I wanted to make sure that I was being respectful, but since I knew them as Pete and Tracey, and I think that they are comfortable with that's how I address them, that's how I'm going to address them today. As we start, I want to turn the clock back 4 years ago. Pete, you were finishing your 10th year as mayor, and the town threw a party as a thank you to you. Tracey, you had served 4 years on the council, and you were running unopposed, and you were elected mayor without opposition. The town has not had a contested election for mayor in 8 years. So as I was out doing one of my dog walks, I came across a friend, fellow resident, and he has the basis for my first question. He said to me, I thought Pete and Tracey were on the same team. What's going on? And I think that that's kind of the elephant in the room for a lot of the casual observers in town. So we started with Tracey for the opening. So Pete, I'll ask the question first of you. Why are you re-entering and running against the mayor who you seemingly had your approval 4 years ago?
Sure. Well, thank you, Sean. I just want to take a second here to correct some history. I did not step down as mayor to run for higher public office. I stepped down from mayor because I was appointed as the county ombudsman for master plans and was allowed to finish out my term at the time. And I was told that it would be best at the moment, since I was starting a new job, to be focusing on those responsibilities. I did run for higher office afterwards, though. I think Tracey and I agree on a lot of things. We did quite well together when we were on the town council, but the difference is I don't agree with the direction the town is going now. I think we've lost sight of things like the sector plan and the direction the town had advocated to go for. I don't think the development review board is being used properly. I think that the town aesthetics are not doing so well. We've got several sites with graffiti on them. We've got overflowing trash cans. We've got cars parked in grass and several things that we pass regulations to stop doing. And I just see a direction in the town that I don't care for anymore. And I'd like to step in and try to get us back on track.
Okay. So Tracey, let me turn to you. Based on what Pete just said, what are your thoughts about the job you have done? And what are your thoughts in light of his challenge based on some of the things that he just pointed out where he wants to change the direction?
Well, of course, we have different management styles to begin with, and we do agree a lot. And there's very little that Pete sees that I don't also see. I think we take them at A lot of the things are minute and they do matter, but I know that from Pete's perspective, he would like to live more in a gated type community where you tell everybody what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, that you're not cutting your grass properly, or you're not, you know, pulling the line. And I find our residents don't want that type of code enforcement. They want things to look nice, but they're not interested in the heavy hand of government. And so I try to find that balance. And Pete has definitely been my biggest critic. I hear it all the time. And but I also hear that we're doing a great job and the town looks terrific.
Okay. Well, sort of following up on that, I was going to ask, especially for people who may be tuning in who don't know one or both of you, what personal qualities about you make you the preferred candidate, not to be just to be a mayor, but to be the mayor of the town of Kensington. So I guess to focus the question, I'd say describe what you see as the fit between you and your temperament and your qualities and the role of being the mayor of this town. And Tracey, I'll start with you.
I'm definitely more optimistic. I'm definitely more positive. I am definitely geared more towards helping out our businesses. I spend a lot of time with them. And then I try to make activities for our residents and making sure that, because my kids remember certain things when they grew up here in the town. And I want that next generation to also have things to look back, you know, whether it's lighting up town hall, whether it's putting ducks in the fountain. They're just things like that that I want them to remember. So when they look back, they said, oh, the parades and, you know, all these cool things happened here in the town. So those are the things that I think make a difference for us.
Okay. And Pete, same question to you. Describe your fit as your personal qualities and your focus with the town of Kensington.
Sure. So I learned being there requires tact and diplomacy, as well as an understanding one may disagree without being rude. I think for success, I do believe we need to allow all 4 of our council members to play a role in the government and not just the 2 favored members of the council. I think it's important that we restore civility and working relationships between town officials and the townspeople. That's mandatory. If elected again, I will build on my past accomplishments and complete many of the unfinished projects that should have been done quite some time ago and focus on new goals for Kensington. In terms of big government, I'm not for big government. I am simply trying to enforce the laws and regulations that are passed by past councils and things that residents did want to happen in the town and make the town look better than ever. I don't find cars parked on grass, overflowing trash cans, and graffiti a nice looking place to live.
Okay. At this point, I'm tempted to follow on that, but I think I'm going to go at it a little differently here. So let's say that you are, to both candidates, let's say that you are elected to be our mayor again, in both cases for the next 2 years. With regard to decision-making as to what is the thing to do as the mayor in decision-making or in the direction to take, what is your philosophy? Are you going to be based on the fact that you're elected, that it's a case of mayor knows best, and you're going to go with what you think is the way to go? Do you put your finger in the air to determine which way the town residents' wind is blowing in order to, and then figure out how to act on that? Or can you describe for me and for the town residents how you take into account your personal opinions versus what the town residents may believe in making your decisions? Pete, I'll start with you.
So I believe that council members are elected to represent the residents and to help the mayor govern the town. However, it's the mayor's job to lead the town. And as I noted before, it requires tact and diplomacy as well as an understanding that being more civil to folks is going to go a longer way. I believe allowing all of our council members to play a role again is important, but also restoring those working relationships, and that the format of how the council interacts with the mayor should be a standard way. Personally, I've always had a group of people that have helped me over the years when I was mayor who I could go to and see what their thoughts were and opinions. I also started from the public on all of the council agendas, which was never done before, and that allowed residents to come to our meetings and say things that were not on the agenda and maybe provide ideas and suggestions for future times.
So Tracey, same question. Describe for us your philosophy. Are you set in how you're going to decide on how to do things? Do you take into account town resident opinion, or you know, how do you make decisions how to proceed as the mayor?
Well, absolutely. You take the opinions of the town residents. That's of course you do. As far as the council, I mean, everybody who gets on the council has they get on because they want to do something. And I'm definitely one of those that if you want to do something, go make it happen. It just depends on the council person on how much time they have and what their commitment is to make something happen. But if it's something that you want to do, then it's up to the council person to make that happen and then bring it back and sell it to the rest of the group to make sure that whatever it is that they wanted, whether it's a picnic pavilion or it's a mini hawk on Metropolitan Avenue, that you do the heavy lifting. I'll be there to help, and you know, everybody on the council has their own agenda that they want to do to get done, and I think they should put in the hard work to do it.
Okay. So I don't want to belabor this point, but I mean, it seems to me we're talking about the same thing here, which is the issue of civility. It's been raised in this campaign. We were all around when one of the most divisive issues related to the town in our recent history, the redrafting and enacting of the Kensington sector plan, was in the works. And, you know, that was probably a time when the civility in town was very much tested. I also recall during that time that we had one council member who might have been not participating in as much as the other 3 council members. So if that is indeed the case today, it was certainly something that was going on then as well. So my question is, do we genuinely have a civility issue today? If so, where does it lie between who, what people, and what specific takes? If there is a civility issue, what specific steps would you take in order to return the town, the government, and the relationship among everybody to a state of civility? Tracey, I'll start with you.
I don't think we have a civility issue. I was kind of taken by surprise by that because I think our council meetings have been quite polite. Sometimes we differ, sometimes we vote a different way, but I think everyone has an opportunity to speak, and then we move on. But I don't see what Pete sees, and I do know though that it is, and Pete should understand this for sure, that when you have a council member whose spouse is somewhat participating, it does make it harder for that council person and the rest of the council. So they have every right to do it, but it does cause problems. And so for that council person, and I would think that you would want to show that person respect and just let them be the councilman.
Pete, do we have a civility issue, and is it an issue in this campaign?
Absolutely we do, and we're respectfully disagreeing with Mayor Furman. Well, I started knocking doors in January and then finished in March. And as many of you know, I'm also married to a current town council member. So I was getting information from him in terms of what was going on, and then getting information from residents and feedback. People are dismissed, they're disregarded, they are cut off, interrupted. That's apparent if you watch videos and council members, but not only that, just calling the town hall to try to get actions. It's little things like, I keep harping on graffiti, but little things like graffiti on a county bridge the response to a community member should not be, oh, that's a county issue, call the county. It should be, get the location, find out who the person is, call the county yourself as a town representative, and get the graffiti removed. That's the part of government and small government and being in a small town.
Okay, so is it an issue of how the town services are passed out? It's an issue of things on the council. Tracey suggests it's an issue of participation by spouses. I mean, give me 30 seconds. Give me some specifics here as to where you see the civility issue, Pete.
Well, it absolutely has nothing to do with having a spouse in the council. Tracey can also remember that her husband served on the council with me for quite some time. It has to do with the way people are treated. And there are a number of people who can attest to being treated very poorly, either at council meetings, making calls to the town staff, or in any number of situations where they've requested things and been dismissed. And that's not something I can make up. It's been from knocking on doors and getting feedback. So
I actually made that a 30-second follow on. Tracey, have you been made aware of these issues of people who have been mistreated by the town and the government and the staff? And have you taken any steps if you have?
When Pete says, I'm not making this stuff up, he is making this stuff up, because I have not received those calls. People are not treated that way. I have seen the graffiti on the bridge, and it's been reported to the county, and the county will get to it. We are in a pandemic where it is difficult to get people out to do things right now. And that's one thing that Pete doesn't have, is patience. He doesn't understand when other people have other work that they have to do, and it will get done. But for so long, I've heard a lot of people are saying, well, those people are not saying it to me. And I have suggested that he refer them to me, and he never does. Those people don't exist.
Well, I believe that a call for civility has been made in this campaign, and my suggestion is that we do try to pursue that. All right. As you both know, the position as mayor is not a full-time position, and the stipend, although higher than it used to be, is not sufficient for anyone to survive on as their sole income source. So you both hold other jobs, and I received numerous questions about the issue of serving both in a full-time job and also as mayor, and whether there are conflicts of interest that may arise as a result of the duties of your current job and the responsibilities if you serve as mayor. So my question, do either of you currently have any conflicts of interest? Do you foresee situations based on either your plans going forward as mayor or issues that are likely to face the mayor where a conflict could exist? And if so, how do you deal with these conflicts should they arise? I'll start with Tracey.
Every year we have to fill out an ethics form for the town, and you have to state whether there is if you have a conflict. Every year I write down that I am a staff member at St. Paul's United Methodist Church, and if there was an issue with the church, then I would defer to others. Other than that, I have no conflicts of interest.
Pete?
So I think the question also is alluding to someone's personal time, working full time. But to answer the part about disclosure, I certainly have had my experience with that. I have to fill out, not only would fill out a town disclosure, but working directly for our county executive, I have to fill out a very extensive disclosure, which is public information. It's currently 11 pages long. And that is, I'm happy to share that. It's much more detailed than the town's disclosure. But in terms of time, at one period I was elected mayor. I was serving in Annapolis as the Deputy Secretary of State, and I was also the president of the entire Maryland Mayors Association. So I manage my time well by multitasking and being very careful with how I spend my time.
And the second part of my question, do you foresee, let's say you're either one of you is sitting in the mayor's seat, issues that could come before the town during the next term where you're going to have to be concerned with a conflict of interest with your current job? Start with you, Pete. Let me focus it a little more. Your responsibilities to the town versus obligations to your job. Do you foresee those, and if so, how do you deal with them?
I do not foresee any. My job as the master plan ombudsman for the county is focused on other areas of the county, such as White Flint, the Pike District, White Oak, which are not related to Kensington. However, should a master plan question or something that has to do with my direct responsibilities to the county executive and the council come up, I would clearly recognize that and seek, advice on how to handle it. And if need be, I'd turn and let the mayor pro tem, whoever that person is at the time, represent the town and handle the activities. In the case of making a choice between the county or the town, that depends on the particular situation. I'd like to see the town come first, so that's part of the mayor's job.
Okay. Tracey, anything in the future where you foresee having a conflict of interest with between your responsibilities to the town and your obligations to your job?
No, I don't see any conflicts there.
Okay. So let me ask both of you 15 seconds, yes or no, and a brief explanation. Ethics and conflicts of interest, are they an issue in this campaign? Tracey?
Not for me, no.
Or do you see them as an issue in the campaign, though, generally?
I guess my only concern would be if Pete is trying to represent the town in front of Park and Planning. I don't believe his current conditions allow him to do that.
Pete, is it an issue in this campaign? And follow on to Tracey's suggestion of representation in front of Park and Planning.
Sure, no, it's not an issue. And I have represented the town in the past in front of Park and Planning while working for the state. And I had represented in certain areas when working for the county. I'll be doing that in the future. If I see that there's a conflict, then I'll step aside. But I am allowed by the rules and regulations to play the role of mayor in front of the planning board. As long as I make that known for the meetings, I am here today in the role as mayor, or I'm here today in the role as the ombudsman. I did it before and I can do it again.
Okay. So in a previous question, I mentioned the sector plan, and I'd like to start a general discussion with regard to development in the town. First of all, tell me, in your opinion, of both of you, how you feel the sector plan is faring now that it's been enacted and we've lived several years in the town with potential development, some developments actually coming to fruition. Is the town getting the development and the types of proposals envisioned when the sector plan was enacted? And if you believe they have in some cases, can you describe them? And if not, why aren't we getting those? And Pete, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So to answer the question, I don't think we're headed in the right direction that we have advocated for in the sector plan. The sector plan is really our roadmap to coherent and appropriate development, and its provisions are meant to be followed. No one knows the sector plan more thoroughly than I do, and currently we're on our way to becoming a retirement center of the county. We've got 2 centers approved now and a possible 3rd center, which is in the review process. This directly stems from a misunderstanding of the sector plan itself, as well as the use of the Development Review Board, which I created as a tool to help the town and the council understand. The makeup of the Development Review Board are all professionals, architects, engineers, urban planners like myself. And so if elected, I would proactively follow the sector plan, source the type of development that we want, hold developers to the responsibilities, especially for providing the public amenities that we should be getting, and attract projects we envisioned all along.
Tracey, respond to both my question and Pete's comments. Are we getting the type of development that we ought to, based on the intent of the sector plan? And or are we becoming a home for retirement homes and centers?
Well, I think Pete's answer is a little bit misleading. We are getting a luxury senior facility on Metropolitan Avenue, which quite frankly is going to, you know, a lot of the residents were concerned about traffic. So part of the amenities, and a senior apartment will not give as much. Part of the amenities, of course, is two historic structures will be rehabbed, and the garage will be actually a cafe with a plaza. So that's one of the amenities that we'll be getting, and of course the larger sidewalks and parking on the side. It is misleading about the senior apartment on Knowles Avenue. There's a lot of misunderstanding, thinking that that's a nursing home. It is not. It is for 62 years and above. And I personally take offense that I am ready to be put out to pasture at 62. I think these will be vibrant people that move in, and they'll be able to participate in our community just fine. As far as the other project, Pete knows darn well that it was done as a senior facility because we're in a moratorium, or age restricted. And now that we're going to be out of a moratorium, that they will go back to all ages. Sorry.
It's okay. So, so looking forward, Tracey, you describe the current status of development, and Pete is describing, you know, what he has seen gone on. The question to both of you is, what specifically will you do to encourage the type of development that is consistent with the vision of the sector plan going forward? What levers do you have, and how are you going to pull them?
Well, I think the levers that you have is that they need approval from the town. It's very helpful to have that ahead of time. We have excellent design excellence is something that planning has been really working hard with us to make sure that whatever is redeveloped is at the top level, especially with our design guidelines. We're going to have some beautiful buildings, but people also have to understand that when you put it like the senior apartment on Knowles Avenue, people were very upset about traffic. Well, if you were to put retail there or mixed use, now you're creating even more traffic. So this was a compromise in order to get less traffic in that area. But planning has just been absolutely wonderful to work with, and the buildings that we're currently under construction and soon to be are just going to be great additions to our town, and they will fit within our sector plan.
Pete, how about you? What levers do we have? Are we using them? How are you going to use them?
Well, I think it's important to step back with how the development process should be working. I mean, I'm happy to have introduced the Solera property on Metropolitan Avenue when they first came to the town, as well as the Wine and Company building there on Knowles. And Mayor Furman, I think, was there for the ribbon cutting of Wine and Company, and she'll be there for the ribbon cutting of the Solera project. We can do better than what we're getting. I don't recall ever using the word nursing home. Retirement center is very, very different, and we're getting 3 of those. I believe that there are things we should be going after. People want to see, for instance, the gasoline alley, which is behind the fire station, is long overdue for redevelopment. It'd be a perfect place to establish a brewery, a distillery, a restaurant incubator with condos on the upper floors. The other thing the town's been interested in is a community center with a pool for years, and the ideal place is the former Kensington Elementary School. And I'd like to see a second use in there, maybe something like an education hub. So we need to put a plan in place and make things like this happen.
Well, this is just a short answer question. I'm going to go back, start with you, Pete. How do you, as mayor of the town of Kensington, turn Gasoline Alley into a brewery? How do you bring a community center? What plan and what ability does the mayor have in that kind of specific sort of proposals being brought to the town?
Well, how long do I have to answer that question?
I'm sorry?
How long do I have to answer that question?
I'll give you 30.
Okay, thank you. So the first step is you meet with the applicants that are interested, and you got to be shopping and be proactive, not be passive. You can't wait for developers to come to us. We have to go out into the community and find ones. The Urban Land Institute is a great tool to help us find the right developers. Meet with them privately, figure out what they're doing. If it's something that's the right fit for the town, then you put them to the development review board and let the DRB do their job as professionals. Once they're at that point and the DRB is content, then it should move on to the mayor and council for their opinion and any kind of approval if possible. But it's about shopping and being proactive. You have to go after the right uses that you want in town, not sit back and let retirement centers come to Kensington. You just simply do that.
And as a 10-second follow-up, do you have examples of you're doing that when you were mayor?
Well, I had an in-between person with the Solera company in terms of the Mayoral property, not with Wine and Company. I had met with several people, the old antique village that is on Howard Avenue. I met with those two fellows, they're brothers that own the property in New York, and we tried to work some things out and we worked on some plans. I can remember examples in my current job, but with the sector plan being approved, development takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So I was already out of office by the time if I had any original ideas to implement them. So no.
So based on the use of time of the follow-up and the follow-up to the follow-up, Tracey, you have a minute to respond and to let us know more about the levers that are being used. Could you be using more? What is the status? Are there people who are coming into town that we should be meeting with?
We have met with multiple people, and a lot of it too is because the sector plan, we did not want to be a Bethesda where we had lowered the heights. Right now, some of the properties are just not economically viable to happen. So, I mean, that's a bit of a disappointment, but it's because the residents want to keep the heights lower, and I understand that, and I support that. But it does make some of the projects that people want more difficult to get. So there's an economic issue. Also, I'm going to correct Pete again that the senior apartment, while it is called senior, does not mean, and I guess I get my AARP card, but we are not ready to be put out to pasture yet. So we're just age restricted, but otherwise still vibrant people that can give back to our community. And as far as the other one, once again, I will correct Pete that it was only because you couldn't get the plans through the planning board unless it was age restricted. And now that the moratorium will be lifted, they will go back to where of all ages.
Okay. Moving on to some other areas of concern and development. I see that we actually received a question during this forum, and I'll ask, what do you see as the future use of the HOC property? That's probably about 30 seconds, Tracey.
I've already talked to MCPS, and they plan to take the building back when HOC leaves. That means it will come back into the community use of public facilities, which will make the gym more readily available and other spaces within the building. They want to use it for pre-K. So 2 years is still a long way away from the time the HOC would move out. I realize people want to have a community center, and I think it would be great and I would support it, but I do not think the county is ever going to have that kind of funding to put into that building.
Pete, HOC property.
So my solution to not having the funding to do something is you do what we've done in the past. You go after grants, you go after open space funding, you find someone that's going to sponsor, and you find the money and you get the project finished. The elementary school would be a great place. And as I said earlier, I think it is a large facility. I think we could get a secondary use in there, like an educational hub for the kids, and make it a combined thing where you've got a community pool, a community center, and then an educational component to the plan.
Okay. Pliers Mill in Connecticut. It's an old gas station. It's currently being used as a farmer's market. There is a proposal for a storage facility with mixed use on the first floor. It did not survive. Question one, was there anything that could have been done with the proposal and the owner, the developer that came to the town with the Pliers Mill in Connecticut proposal that could have created a project? Secondly, what use should be made of that property going forward, and how would we assist in making that happen? Pete, you're up first.
So I think the first mistake that was made with the storage facility is that there was no outreach with the community and asking what they wanted to see there. And it's fine to go to the DRB, but it should never have been on the council's agenda. There was not uniformity, there's not unanimity in council in terms of the votes. Clearly, there were two members who were very opposed to the project from day one. But it wasn't until alarms started being sounded throughout the community, letting people know, hey, I don't know if you're paying attention, but this is going to get approved if you don't step up and say something. And people began emailing the council or coming to meetings and planning board meetings as well, and expressing opinions to the planning board staff and saying, we're not interested in this. I think we can do better on that property. I'd like to see it join with the 7-Eleven lot next door. There's some co-ownership there. You could get a better development if you join the properties. That's going to take some work. But if you can't join them, a lot of people are looking for a boutique hotel or something, maybe 4 or 5 stories with some retail on the first floor. And that could fit into that type of, and that size of a lot.
Tracey, so I guess my question is to respond in part. Were there missteps taken with regard to the DRB and council in moving forward with Pliers Mill in Connecticut? Was the use there something that you would have been positive on, and what can we do going forward with that property?
The use is not something that I supported, and the council voted twice to not support the project. What Pete misses out on constantly is that it went through the process, and we told them not to file as it was going through the DRB, and then they had a community meeting, which is that period of time which community spoke, and the council said, no, we don't want this. It was a persistent developer, and it took a while, but we finally got rid of him. So as far as the property next door, we've met with the property owners multiple times, and they're looking at another 20 years before they would even entertain the thought of doing a mix or a joint construction project there. So as far as a boutique hotel, I think that would be great. We've actually met with representatives of a hotel industry, and nothing has come of it. And a lot of that is because of the height restrictions. It's just not economically viable.
So the responses to the last question bring to mind the process that is currently in place, where the town and council and the DRB that was created are a part of the process. Does the town have a process in place through those bodies through which proposals are properly vetted, but that positive proposals are able to go forward? Or do we need to tweak the current process and the bodies in order to affect that? And I guess the overall question is, what ability does the mayor and council through its committee have to move the needle on development? Tracey, I'll start with you.
I think part of the problem, when people come in, it's usually with a concept plan and an idea of what they want to do. And a lot of this, there's a lot of moving parts. So I'll give the example of the project there at Summit and Knowles Avenue. It's been 2 or 3 things, and it's still a very fluid project right now. So a lot of times they're just trying to get our input. They're trying to get feedback from the community. It typically goes back to the council to get to see whether there's any support for it. We did put in guidelines for the DRB, which never had them before. But a lot of these projects, when they first start out, they're just too fluid. You don't know. We have to see if they fit into the sector plan, and we have to look at public amenities. And so it's not a done deal the first time they walk through the door. There's a long road ahead, as Pete has said. You're talking about 2 or 3 years sometimes.
Pete, do we have a proper structure in place for the town to participate in, review, and to help in the case of positive proposals to move forward? And how otherwise can the mayor and council move the needle?
Sure. We do have a proper method and tools in place to get the development that we desire. It's just that the tool's not being used properly. I created the DRB so that the DRB, who's made up of professionals, could give opinions to the council as to what they think of a plan. There was no one at the time except maybe me that was in the field of development serving on the council. And so I don't think it's appropriate that council members should be making decisions on things that professionals can do a better job of.
Is that a structural problem with the DRB?
No, there's not well, there's a structural problem in that there are two council members that are the liaisons to the council. Well, that happened that happened on my term, went from 1 to 2 council members. I think that's a mistake. The 2 council members that are on there, I think, is overkill, and they tend to run the meetings instead of allowing the members of the DRB to actually do their job. And as I said prior, the plan should never, ever, ever get on a council agenda unless the members of the DRB are content with what they see, because they are the professionals that are representing the council.
So with discussion of development, we also have a concurrent concern with traffic in the town. We've got several locations where, especially on Connecticut Avenue, where we have failing grades for our intersections. Is there any relief in sight for residents for town of Kensington traffic? And will the proposed Summit Avenue extension provide any of that relief? And as part of your answer, if you could also describe your view of the Summit Avenue extension proposal. Pete, I'll start with you. Traffic, is there any relief? Does Summit Avenue extension provide such relief?
Thank you. Our 2 worst intersections are along Connecticut Avenue, as you said, Sean. It's Knowles Avenue and then at Flyers Mill Road. And the state controls both Connecticut and Knowles Avenue, and the county controls the traffic lights at these intersections. So there are a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of chemistry as to how you make these intersections work. Plus, we have the firehouse. Every time the firehouse has to go out to serve, call an alarm, it triggers the lights to go out of sync. So the center of the town was studied during the sector plan process. It was recently revisited again by the county. And the primary mitigation solution to fix the traffic is the Summit Avenue extension, because it's approved in the sector plan and it's been blessed by the county council. It's in their capital improvements project. This must be constructed to alleviate our traffic troubles. And other ideas that I'd like to see looked at are reversing certain lanes during rush hour, traffic light timing, and then better turning lanes around town. Some of them are too sharp, they're not long enough, or not wide enough.
Okay. Tracy, do you want to comment on Kensington traffic, the big picture, and any relief in the Summit Avenue extension?
Well, a pandemic has certainly made a relief, but I don't think I'd want to do that to get rid of traffic. But the Summit Avenue extension, Mark Elrich tried to pull it out of the CIP, and I made sure that it stayed in there. So it is still on track. Unfortunately, it's still, a couple of years away. So as anything in the CIP is, and the traffic lights that Pete has mentioned, the fire department is trying not to use it as often as they once did, so that has been better. We are widening Metropolitan Avenue there in front of the senior facility, so that will will help a little bit in that area as far as traffic getting on and off the streets from that building. So I'm afraid traffic is with us, and with everyone redeveloping around us.
So going from Connecticut Avenue into our neighborhoods, as a former member and chairperson of the traffic committee, I know that that is a major issue for residents and has been for the time I've been here. The traffic prohibitions around town contain turn restrictions, do not enters, often with time restrictions attached to them. That's been described as a patchwork. Do you have any plan for tweaking our residential traffic concerns in and among our neighborhoods? Are you in favor of keeping the patchwork approach? And what are your views on increased enforcement? Tracy, start with you.
Well, I think enforcement, we actually hired 3 part-time police officers putting in 24 hours per week to do the enforcement. I think that's how you get these restrictions for people to stop coming through a do not enter. So that has worked pretty well. I know my side of the town on the west side would like to see more, and we're trying to do that, but it unfortunately requires 2 police officers. You have to see somebody come in, and then you have to see them go out. So it's not as easy, but we are hoping to increase for additional hours with the police force. But that's been extremely successful, is to bringing on MCPD police officers to do the restrictions. And there are officers, so they're the same officers, instead of the way we used to do it, where you just get somebody who volunteered and came in and really didn't know the people, didn't know the streets. Now we have a better system.
Pete, what about our neighborhoods and their traffic concerns? Are we stuck with a patchwork approach? Is there something in our future? And what are your thoughts about our enforcement?
Well, first I want to start by commending Mayor Furman for hiring the extra police that we need. I think they're doing an excellent job. If I was elected, I would certainly continue that practice. The policy that they have now is a little bit more lenient, and so we're allowed to do these kind of things. I do support the traffic restrictions. We've had them many times over the years on the traffic committee, and they've always been more supporters than people that don't want them. But the reality is you can get anywhere you need to get if you actually live in the town. I mean, I live on the north side, and there are restrictions, and any time of the day, you just take a side street or another side road, you can get there. And it's the same way in the other parts of town. So if you actually live here, you know how to get around. The other issue is how do you define local traffic? That's always being asked. There's no definition of local traffic. The Montgomery County Police will not enforce local traffic, because who's to say, is it 2 blocks in? Is it 6 blocks in? If they look at someone's address and their license plate, do they know it's in Kensington or not in Kensington? So it's too difficult for them to enforce, and that's their policy. But I think it works.
So I guess maybe this is just a nod of the head. So our biggest advance on this is hiring the consistent presence of the part-time officers and increased enforcement is in our future. Is that a yes from both of you?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It's been successful.
Okay. Our town is unique for numerous reasons. We have a nice mix of residents and business. We also have a historic district. And I would like for each of you to touch on your thoughts on the contribution that the historic district makes to the town, and what are your thoughts about how you can take steps to preserve it, and are there ways that we can be leveraging our historic district in order to make the town a better place to live? I will start with Pete.
Well, I think that the existing historic district that we have in place does an excellent job to preserve not only the structures, but the integrity of the history of the town. And I think it's important. I've always stood up for the historic district when I was mayor and continue to support it. There are many people in town, though, that do not care to live in a historic district. And so I think the best solution, if we were going to expand the district, was maybe it needs to be a referendum and on a town ballot sometime in the near future. But I support them. I think they're a real asset to the community. The benefits to being in a historic district are tax. There are certain tax deductions you get. And also you get professional advice from the planning department staff on how to better care for your homes and some discounts. And you also get, there's some loan programs out there that are available to keep things looking good. And it also causes people to take a second look at Kensington, to know that we have these grand homes in certain parts of town and they're worth driving through or taking the annual walking tour that the historic district sponsors every year.
So Tracey, your thoughts, the historic district, how it contributes to the town, any thoughts on preservation of it and leveraging it in the future?
Well, I of course support the historic district, and I put up on, we put new signs up, entry signs, promoting the historic business district. We're also, as a town, on our website, we are providing all the information for homeowners who live in the historic district on how they can get the tax credits. The Historic Preservation Commission has been wonderful to work with, and they've provided us with a lot of information. And we're also currently working with one of our residents who heads the local advisory panel, the LAP, and using an administrative needs to put information on the website so people understand that process as well. So we've been very supportive of our historic district. And as far as expanding, I think we'd have to just look at that as houses, particular houses. There is a method in which they pick. You can't just pick one house alone. Doesn't really fit in. It has to be part of this connection with the historic district. Thank you.
Okay. We are, thank you. We are getting close to the end of our time, and I still have two subjects to cover. More briefly, we're talking about traffic enforcement. What about our enforcement of our codes? The town, it can be fairly stated at times that the town operates on a response to complaint basis. There are those who advocate a proactive town. It doesn't wait for a complaint, looks for the code enforcement, and goes out and proactively notifies. What are your thoughts on complaint-driven versus proactive? I'll start with you, Tracey.
I think we have been proactive. I know Pete will say we haven't, but we did hire a full-time code enforcement officer who does go out. She spends a lot of time outside of the building, and the police, the part-time, well, they were retired police officers that we had previously under Pete. They were really only interested in cars, not so much banners and the grass and things like that. So Annie has done a fabulous job. I think what people have to understand, though, when you issue a citation, that it takes 10 days, and then you have to issue another one, and then that's another 10 days before you can provide them with a higher level of, I'm sorry, I just lost what that was, but I keep wanting to say bill, but not that. But anyway, so we have made improvements to it, and it's I think it's a system that's working.
Pete, proactive versus complaint-driven.
Well, first, again, I want to commend Mayor Furman for hiring a full-time code enforcement officer. When I was mayor, we did have 2 code enforcement officers, and they did do a little bit more than just cars. Looked after quite a bit, and in addition to that, they work 7 days a week, which I would bring back if I'm reelected. The shenanigans tend to happen on the weekends, not Monday through Friday, and it's important that we have 7 days a week of code enforcement. But if a citation's issued by a code enforcement officer, it'll be enforced, it'll not be dismissed. As before, I have had regular code enforcement reports I'd like to share with the residents again, and I recognize the importance of the quality of life issues before us, how devoting attention to comparatively small matters like graffiti, accepted commercial signage, vehicles parked on the lawns, as I keep reiterating, overflowing trash receptacles can make a huge difference in the lives of our townspeople. And I can't see if that's, sorry there, Rob, I couldn't see the card, it was too low.
15 seconds.
The landscape for the Connecticut Avenue plan should be implemented and actually completed. And then we need to follow through with the street view plans for flyers from the road on the west side by the fire department and the Dietrich Avenue behind Stroh-Snyder's.
Okay. We're running short on time. I don't think that I can leave this forum, though, without asking a question related to school boundaries. A few years ago, MCPS announced that it was looking into the issue of overcrowding at Walter Johnson High School. By way of background, the entire town of Kensington is in the cluster where its students attend Kensington Parkwood Elementary School, North Bethesda Middle School, and Walter Johnson High School, if that is their choice to attend public school. One proposed aspect of to deal with the overcrowding is to reopen Woodward High School as a high school and not and to increase its capacity from its current use as a middle school. But MCPS has also started a process of analyzing school boundaries. So my question to the mayoral candidates: what role does the town of Kensington have in this process? What is the best way for the town of Kensington to proceed and participate as MCPS proceeds with its study? Start with you, Pete.
So school boundaries affect the integrity of our community. It's vital that our students stay in the same cluster and not be divided. And while it's not always a pleasant topic, The reality is our home values are higher in the Walter Johnson cluster, as much as $75,000 to $125,000 more in value than neighboring clusters. I'll bring Kensington back to the table with the county's Board of Education and the school cluster discussions. As before, a council member, I believe it was you, Sean, will be a liaison to the attending school board meetings regularly, and I, as mayor, will always testify at public hearings to testify on behalf of the town's needs. The mayor should also be meeting one-on-one with school board members and staff to express their concerns, and of course, keep our PTA representatives who work hard in the loop. We should join forces with the other communities that are near us, like Garrett Park and Chevy Chase View, in our lobbying efforts to stay together. The more numbers you have together, the more success you'll have.
Tracy, school boundaries, what role is the town of Kensington taking in the process? What's the best way for it to proceed in the future? And if you could also respond to Pete's comment of the town getting back to the table. Has the town lost its seat at the table?
The town has never lost its seat at the table. We've had, just like when you were our representative to MCPS schools, we have a representative on the council who also maintains that role. When they can't attend meetings, then I attend meetings. And maybe I was wrong. I didn't take a selfie of myself and post it on Facebook and say, hey, look at me, I'm at a BOE meeting. I don't do that. But I have been there. We've been working with our cluster rep who lives here in the town. And so our seat has never been left. It's due to my lobbying that we were able to keep the Woodward in the CIP budget. So I do not think we need to be fear-mongering with our residents. And we will be staying in the WJ cluster, because when they open Woodward, that would be the alternative, is we would go to we would be pulled with a lot of other residents in the WJ cluster to fill Woodward.
Okay. I have been keeping tabs of our in-forum questions, and we've actually been able to incorporate them. I am going to do something a little bit. I'm going to call an audible here, and just so that people see the true personalities of our candidates, I have a little bit of a speed round for you. Number one, Pete, have you read any good books lately?
I have. It's called The History of Mentality.
Tracy?
I'm afraid I've been way too busy. You wouldn't think so during the COVID-19, but I've been spending really all of my time working for the town since mid-March. So no.
Have you seen any good movies?
I don't even watch that much television, Sean. Sorry.
Okay. What is your favorite sports team, Tracy?
Favorite sports team? I have
Yes.
to say the Redskins, but I'm actually going to go with the Ravens.
Pete?
The Capitals.
You're both wrong. The correct answer is the Walter Johnson girls lacrosse team. What amenity has been added to the town in the last 10 years that, in your view, has been the best new amenity? Pete?
Probably the pavilion in front of the Prevention of Blindness.
Tracy?
I'm going to go with the fountain in Flynn Park.
Okay.
Very popular. And I'm going to throw in my community art as well that we've been doing.
Tracy, Superman or Batman?
My son loved Batman. Got to go with Batman.
Pete? Pete, Superman or Batman?
Wonder Woman.
Okay. I want you to play Municipal Envy. Tell me an amenity that another municipality has that we don't have and you wish we did. Pete?
A water thing for the kids, not a water fountain, but one that they can play in like they have in downtown Silver Spring.
Okay. Tracy?
Well, I would have said dog park that Chevy Chase Village has, but now they don't have one and we do.
Ooh, throw down the gauntlet. Tracy and Pete, what is your opponent's best quality? Tracy, what's the best thing about Pete?
He's definitely a better dresser than I am.
Pete, best thing about Tracy?
Well, there are a lot of good things about Mayor Furman. I like the fact that you can approach her when I see her, and she's always friendly and waves and says hello, and I think that's important.
Okay. This pandemic has been tragic. It's cost lives. People have been ill. It has hurt our economy. It has caused us to undergo a totally different way of life. Yet some people have found a silver lining during the time they've been able to make a positive out of the pandemic. I would like for you to tell us what positive comes to mind that has come out of the pandemic for you. Pete?
Well, because I know several neighbors in Kensington and other places nearby have lost their jobs, or they've been furloughed or laid off. And I just am very thankful that not only do I have a job that's fairly secure, that everyone in this household has a job, and that I have my health, because people are also getting sick. So I'm thankful that I have a job, and I'm trying to do whatever I can do to help the other people, be it helping out Manicare or the local Bethesda Cares, or just making contributions online to organizations that are really suffering during the pandemic.
Tracey, a positive out of the pandemic for you?
Well, I agree with most of what Pete said, but I'm going to add the fact that when called upon, that our residents have really supported our businesses. I can't tell you how we were, it's taken a lot of years. It started with Pete. I've continued it to add at least 19 more new businesses. And we were basically at the cusp of really breaking out and people knowing that we were there, and businesses being just really successful. And, you know, obviously our retailers had to close, but the restaurants are still thriving. They're hanging in there because people are making their carry-out orders, and they are shopping virtually at some of our retails. So I'm hoping when this is over, we will still have a small business community that can thrive here in Kensington.
Okay. Well, I thank you both for your responses to the questions. Now is the time for our closing statements, 1.5 minutes to each candidate. I'm having a vapor lock. I'm forgetting who is to go first.
Pete.
Pete, you are up first with your closing statement, 1.5 minutes.
Well, thank you again, Rob and Sean, for moderating this, and thanks to the cable staff for helping us out, as well as thank you, Mayor Furman, for being a candidate. It is not easy to run for public office, as we both know. If elected again, I will build on the past accomplishments, complete any unfinished projects, and focus on new goals for Kensington. Going forward, we need someone with the experience and the relationships to get us back on track, as well as someone with the experience to brace us for the inevitable loss of municipal funds due to coronavirus. And that's happening right now at the county level, and that will trickle down to municipalities. Having served as the mayor of Kensington for 5 terms, president of the Maryland Mayors Association, Maryland's Deputy Secretary of State, and now the county's Master Plan Ombudsman, I am that person for the job. I encourage people to visit my website at petefosselman.com to learn more, and I am also asking for your vote. Please consider me for mayor again. Thank you so much again.
Tracey, for 1.5 minutes.
Okay, I also want to thank our moderators, Sean McMullen and Rob Sachs, Melissa Ademold, Albert and Rachel at MMCTV, our town staff, council members Crimmins and Bartram for all they did to put this together today, and of course, all of the candidates. My opponent would have you think that this town is on the wrong path and he alone can fix it. I disagree. I think the town has made vast improvements in the last 4 years, and I'm not alone in that thinking. I received an email addressed to me 4 months into my 2nd term from a council member that included an additional 30 other residents and members of our town staff. He said, "I'm proud of how this town is revitalizing with an eye on what's ahead while maintaining rich and robust appreciation for our historic past. Proud to think about how the town now works alongside our commercial property partners to promote the town to the region by actively sponsoring and committing resources to events and activities. I'm thrilled to witness how the ideas of just a few people can manifest itself in public amenities that everyone gets to enjoy and benefit from, like the fountain and the upcoming park pavilion, for example. The way the town stays open to new ideas and new ways of doing things is reassuring sign of great things to come. Sincerely, Dwayne Rollins, DuPont Avenue." I can promise the residents of this town that yes, indeed, great things are still to come. I have the energy, the relationships, and the positive thinking and steady hand to lead our town through the storm. That's why I ask for your vote to serve the community for another 2 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Fosselman. Thank you, Mayor Furman. Very much appreciate your participation. I thank you on behalf of the town of Kensington and its residents for participating and for helping us make our decision with respect to Election Day. The ballots for this election under these current circumstances have already been mailed out. If you have not heard, our town election is going to be held by mail. You're going to receive, if you're a resident, you may already have received your ballot in your mailbox today, but they are out. Please look for them, and you can have two choices. You can either return them by mail, or you can deposit them in the mailbox, which is set forth just for the election on the ground floor of Town Hall. Please be sure to mail your ballots so that they are received at Town Hall by Monday, June 1st at 9 p.m., or that they are in the box at Town Hall by the same date and time, June 1st and 9 p.m. At this point, I'm going to turn it over.
Can I just correct you? The box is on the main level, not the bottom floor, the main level of Town Hall.
I'm sorry. I meant, did I say, correction?
Just a
It's
correction.
it's on the main level.
The main level.
When I saw the picture, I thought it was on the ground floor.
No,
It's on the main level. So please, by all means, get out or mail your vote, or be safe and socially distanced and deposit it at Town Hall. At this point, we are turning it over. We are ending the mayoral election portion of the candidates forum. We are going to move on now to the candidates forum for the offices of town council member, and to my co-moderator, Rob Sachs.